And now, loyal listeners, a special bulletin. Saburo Arasaka, the ancient patriarch of the Arasaka Corporation, has died. Just kidding, folks. You're too smart for that. You and I both know he's not really dead. Saburo Arasaka has spent nearly 100 years now on a quest for eternal life. He's guarded around the clock by a private army and lived for the better part of the century in a med tank designed to regenerate organic tissue. Guys like that, they don't just die. They certainly don't just get murdered by rivals. What would Saburo even be doing in Night City? No, folks, this is a smokescreen for something. And it wouldn't be the first time. If you're old enough to remember the Fourth Corporate War, there was a widespread report that Saburo had been killed by the Japanese SDF in a bid to end the war. Of course, it turned out not to be true, and the war dragged on for another year. No, you can take this one to the bank. It's only a matter of time before Saburo's going to show up on TV, tell us all he's back as CEO and ready to take the Arasaka Corporation into the next century. Yo, people. So, I don't know if you saw the news, but there's a Klimt exhibit that's opening at the California Museum of Art, San Francisco, in a few weeks. I like Klimt. I was planning on going myself, but I figure there's no point. I mean, after all, it's nothing but high-quality forgeries. What? You mean you think they keep any art on Earth? No, from Picasso to Da Vinci, Pickman to Mapplethorpe. I've been told they've been taken to a secure vault on Luna. Why? Well, that's unclear. Reportedly, it's because after the Fourth Corporate War nearly brought an end to civilization, some of the richest people on Earth got together and made an insurance policy of sorts. Keep the cultural heritage of the Earth in a secure place, out of harm's way in case of another, more serious war. And on the face of it, that's not really bad. But I've heard a darker rumor. I'll fill you in, but first, let me tell you a little story. Long time ago, I knew a guy who owned a small restaurant. Now, things were good for a while, but times change, tastes change, rent goes up, way up. So he decides to cash in on his insurance policy by setting the place on fire. Now, don't worry, I'm not giving away any secrets here. I mean, he was caught, convicted, served his time in a braindance cube, and now he walks the streets a free man. But you know how they caught him? Before he burned down his diner, he took out all the expensive kitchen equipment and sold it. Dead giveaway. So think about this. Someone up on Luna is taking all the stuff on Earth they think has value. Maybe they're not just hoarding it. Maybe they're planning something else. Think about it, folks. And the next time you see a rocket launched from the spaceport, ask yourself this. What if that's the last shipment?
On Trauma Team Diaries, we often share the experiences of our clients. Colin was joined by his brother, wife, and their 2 children. But of them all, only Colin held a trauma team policy.
Do I remember the Washington Street accident? How could I not? His vehicle had collided with an automated refuse truck which had broken down on the roadway. When we arrived at the scene, we saw that he wasn't alone.
Colin reached the hospital in just 1 minute and 27 seconds. His family, however, waited on a city ambulance for nearly 2 hours. But by then, it was already too late. If Colin had used Trauma Team's family care promotion, which offers a 20% discount on a policy for up to 5 family members, this story could have had a happy ending. To learn more about this offer to safeguard your loved ones, please call 949-TRAUMA-TEAM. On Trauma Team Diaries, we often share the experiences of our clients. Among them are corporate managers, celebrities, politicians, why, even dogs. Yes, you heard me correctly. Trauma Team ensures the well-being of many of our 4-legged friends. Bonkers is one such lucky pup, the furry friend of superstar Lizzie Wizzy. Last year, Bonkers was abducted from the celebrity icon's residence in North Oak. The abductors demanded tens of millions for his ransom. But when Bonkers' biomonitor registered an abnormal spike in cortisol, the Trauma Team leapt into action. Senior Specialist Alan Zhang was one team member who took part in the rescue.
Oh, I'll never forget that day. My proudest moment on the team without question. The dog's signal pinged us from a slime pit noodle bar in Kabuki. We dropped on him like a hammer, flashbanged and several smart gun rounds through the wall. 5 seconds, 5 corpses. That's when we heard the whimpering. My heart melted. Bonkers, come here, boy. Your mama's been waiting for you. Who's a good little doggy? Huh? Who's a good little boy?
To speak with one of our representatives today, call 949 Trauma Team. Trauma Team, keeping all of your loved ones safe. On Trauma Team Diaries, we often share the experiences of our clients. But today, we give voice to the heroes who rescued them. Their brushes with death, their heart-stopping stories of survival. Trauma Team paramedics must be able to save a life, as well as take one. After completing a year-long course in first aid, they move their training to the shooting range. Pistols, smart guns, heavy weapons, grenades. Our medical experts must become as competent with firearms as they are with a defibrillator. In matters of life and death, Trauma Team is always a bullseye. And that's no exaggeration. Last year, Trauma Team's mission success rate reached 98.9%. Alaya Bird has been an AV pilot with Trauma Team for over 7 years. Before that, she worked as a driver in Militech's Armored Transport Division.
What do I love most about my job? The adrenaline. When you're screaming through Night City at over 300 miles per hour during peak traffic, every nanosecond counts.
Are there any disadvantages?
Well, I can't exactly watch TV or movies. My implants process what I see at over 1,000 frames per second. It's like watching a slideshow. I react faster than I can move my own hands, faster than my own thoughts. But that's a small price to pay for a life beyond the speed of sound.
Every quarter, Alaya undergoes a thorough review to ensure her cyberware is optimally calibrated by our team of engineers, and every line of code is meticulously analyzed by our programmers. Before a city ambulance can even pull out of the garage, Alaya is already at the scene, saving lives. 1 minute and 26 seconds. That's the average response time for a Trauma Team AV to reach a client in distress. We want to give her every edge to quicken her reaction time and sharpen her reflexes. To speak with one of our representatives today, call 949 Trauma Team.
Welcome to N54 News. I'm Jillian Jordan, and here's what's happening in the world today. The last active photovoltaic solar farms have been decommissioned in Nevada and Utah. Solar power generation, once seen as the future of clean energy in America, has suffered significant setbacks in today's more extreme climate. The layer of dust suspended in our atmosphere, a result of the Himalayan wars, has limited the amount of solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface. More importantly, the increasing regularity of hurricanes and sandstorms caused frequent and costly damage to most solar farms. Unsurprisingly, wind power has fared just as poorly. The number of active turbines has plummeted by 63% over the last 15 years alone. It appears Q2 will remain the uncontested leader in the energy sector for the foreseeable future. In mainland Europe and the Mediterranean, the humanitarian crisis has grown worse. According to the latest report, as much as 20% of the continent is no longer suitable for human habitation. Temperatures in Sicily, Malta, and the Cyclades have reached as high as 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Air pollution in Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania now exceeds the continent's average by more than 2,000%. However, heads of state in France, England, and Germany have issued a joint statement in which they preclude the option of government intervention. Their statement reads, quote, "Interference by government authority is interference in the free market. The disruption of natural market mechanisms only serves to hinder the optimal path for solutions to current problems." End quote. In other news, China has become the first country in the world to formally ban the use of human-controlled road vehicles. From now on, Chinese citizens can use only autonomous vehicles approved by government regulators. State-validated self-driving vehicles will be limited to pre-authorized routes, such as a person's commute to and from work. The Chinese government has given citizens a week to report all manually operated vehicles still in use, and to submit all bicycles for installation with state-issued GPS tracers. Thank you for watching N54 News. Join us again next time.
All right, listen up, people. I've got a public service announcement. It's about the scourge of our age, that chrome nightmare that you know as cyberpsychosis. It seems we can't go a day without some boosted lunatic tearing through a crowd of bystanders. The story you've always heard is that it's a psychological condition, a kind of dissociative violence. But is there more to it? What if cyberpsychosis is intentional? I once heard a theory that I think merits some thought. An old friend of mine used to say that he thought the biggest manufacturers had got together a long time ago and agreed on a baseline failure rate for certain devices. Bad code intentionally inserted into the mind-machine interfaces to slowly drive people up the wall, a kind of human planned obsolescence. They figure, what's the best defense against a nut job with a 23-inch telescoping blade in his forearm? A 26-inch telescoping blade in yours. I can't say he's not onto something. Every time some psycho tears his way through a mall, sales of combat cyberware spike. Every time Net54 News runs a story on a massacre, some Arasaka exec buys himself a new yacht. Can that be all, though? It's no secret that incidents of violent cyberpsychosis have skyrocketed in recent decades, despite improvements in manufacturing and design. But there is something new in the latest generation cyberware. Get ready for this, kids. It's the Blackwall. You aren't a runner yourself, or a code jockey, you might not know, but the Blackwall isn't some mystical barrier floating somewhere in the deep net. It's actually a complex hardware-software infrastructure designed to keep AI from accessing your gear, among other things. Maybe it doesn't work as well as NetWatch says. Maybe the madness of the deep net leaks over to our side from the Blackwall from time to time. Drives some poor chumbo right over the edge. And it's possible it doesn't really exist anyway. Maybe it's just something the media came up with. Look, I'm not saying there aren't attacks. I've seen a few myself. What I am saying is there's a million reasons why one human might want to butcher another. Hell, we've been doing it for millions of years, even without cyberware. But let me tell you, listeners, with cyberware, it's easier than ever. And then on the other side, maybe the corporate and media types just came up with a word, so they wouldn't have to think too hard about it. And you wouldn't either. Of course, this is all speculation. If I knew what caused cyberpsychosis, believe me, I'd tell you.
Welcome to N54 News. I'm Jillian Jordan. We begin now with your latest local news. The 54th anniversary of the AHQ disaster is fast approaching. In 2023, Night City was shaken to its core by the detonation of a tactical nuclear bomb in Arasaka's NC headquarters. 12,000 were killed instantly by the blast, and thousands more later succumbed to acute radiation sickness. This tragic incident, which some ultimately attribute to Arasaka's wanton imperialist tendencies, has forever left a mark on our city's history. And now, an important message for Watson residents. The homelessness problem plaguing the district's sewer system will be addressed as fumigation of the tunnels begins tomorrow. Due to the use of potent neurotoxins, Watson residents are urged to stay clear of storm drains and sewer entrances to minimize risk of injury and death. Next, is it the end of eastbound traffic jams on the I-9? Long-awaited repairs to Ring Road East may begin as early as next month. Estimates put investment into this major artery at close to €20 million, with priority being placed on efficiency and anti-nomad barriers. And that is it for your latest local news. After the break, we have a look at our world report. Hello, Night City. I'm Jillian Jordan with N54 News, and this is your local latest. The NCPD has urged caution when using data terms. A routine inspection has shown many have been corrupted with malware. Police experts have confirmed the identified virus can lead to cyberware failure and, in extreme cases, even death. In response to increased gang activity, the mayor's office has raised the public threat level to red. Residents of Arroyo and Watson are advised not to leave their homes after dark and always ensure easy access to protective firearms. Schools and hospitals have been closed until further notice. What's next for Pacifica? The district, formerly designed as an oasis of luxury, has become a den for violent gangs and drug addicts. Kang Tao recently expressed interest in the purchase of Pacifica property with the aim of constructing a new server and logistics center. The city government has openly considered selling the land for a single euro in a symbolic gesture, provided that Kang Tao demonstrates commitment to eradicating the district's criminal presence. Today's final story is an unwelcome one for pet owners. The canine ownership tax will increase to €1,000 per dog per month. Similarly, the fine for possessing an undocumented animal will increase to €40,000. Thank you for tuning in to the N54 local news. Have a pleasant day.
Last game I dropped 53 points, got 24 boards, and 32 assists. Would have never even gotten close without him.
So, you'd recommend?
Get the job done. Girl, I jump around like a flea with these babies.
Ladies and chooms, the Cubit 2 from Biodyne, approved by Kevin King himself. Available tomorrow in authorized retailers. See you soon, and keep on chipping in. What up, Night City? How we feeling today? 'Cause I feel amazing. Why is that, you might ask? Well, it just so happens your girl just got a prototype of More Technology's latest beaut. The Housestock W forearms were originally designed for the military, but they've just been approved for general circulation. I had to wait for some nasty scars to heal before I fired these up for the first time, but when I did, well, see for yourself. Here we go. Accept, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's ready. You guys recording? Sweet. 3, 2, 1, go. Holy shit! Did you get that? Now, I could go over all the fine-grained deets and specs, but I'm guessing that little demo spoke for itself. One thing I will say, though, for an extra premium, Morro will throw in some red-hot incendiary and stun modules for the Housestock W. All this just shows that More Technology's Housestock W implants are an excellent choice for security personnel, mercs, and of course, any ordinary night citizen struggling to get their pickled scop jars open. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. That's right, a 5 out of 5. See you next time and keep on chipping in.
So hey people, listen up, I've got a story to tell. Goes back to an old friend of mine, netrunner whose name I can't say on air for reasons of personal and global security. And she once told me that she knew the real origins of the net. This friend, she's been around. She started running back before the data crash, when the deep net was open to all. She survived the crash, dodged the rapids, persevered through the Netwatch purges, and watched the black wall go up with her own virtual eyes, and she's not one to make up fairy tales. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because what she told me seemed unbelievable at first. So she tells me after a bottle and a half of Joe Teal, Mike, she says, the net isn't what it seems. She continued by asking me a question. Why do you think Bart Moss named them demons anyway? Because that's what they are. Raish didn't invent the net. He discovered it. She looked me dead in the eyes and she said, the net is hell, and Bart Moss opened the door. So over the next few hours, she lays out her case. She talked about the similarities between, how did she put it, hyperfractus stratified computational data synthesis, and the practices of the legendary scholomance. She said that Netwatch has its origins in the Vatican, and that the Black Wall sings in Aramaic. Now, listeners, you know I'm a skeptical guy. I don't run every rumor I hear despite what my detractors might say. And I might have kept this one to myself if it weren't for the fact that I've known her for ages, and she's not a kook. So what do you folks think? I'd love to hear from some of the runners of my audience. I'm here to listen.
Hello, Night City. As always, your business is my business. Today we tackle a homegrown giant in defense. You guessed it, Militech. At first glance, Militech's portfolio looks gold-plated. 500,000 employees worldwide, profits in the hundreds of billions, capitalization on the order of some 2 trillion. But do we accept these jaw-dropping numbers as the product of healthy competition? Or being in bed with the authoritarian NUSA government? The line between Militech and the feds has always been fluid. CEO Donald Lundy previously headed the Pentagon. Elizabeth Kress, former president of the company for the greater part of a decade, later became president of the NUSA. And who replaced Kress in the Oval Office? Rosalind Myers. Surprise, surprise, Militech's former CEO. Responsible for over 60% of contracts, the NUSA is far and away their largest customer. Though, in truth, these sales amount to no more than hidden government subsidies. This should raise a huge red flag for any investor with half a brain. Militech is suckling at the giant teat that is the capital. But should Washington ever run dry, kablamo! Want my recommendation? Sell, sell, and sell some more. And if you're unsure where to shove all that cash on short notice, you can't go wrong with the Arasaka money machine. Stay steady and make eddies, my friends. Until next time, NC.
This is N54 News with a breaking story. A cyber psycho attack shocks Wellsprings. Lester McKenzie, age 28, opened fire at the River Mall shopping center. The shooting lasted 10 minutes before the assailant was killed shortly after MaxTac forces arrived. The Implant Manufacturers Association has issued a statement in response to the incident, stating, quote, "Our thoughts and prayers go to the victims and their families. We at the IMA extend our sincerest condolences in the wake of this unavoidable tragedy." End quote. 35 people were pronounced dead at the scene and another 20 remain in critical condition. River Mall administration has announced plans to reopen within the hour. They have offered a 50% discount at participating stores to the families of the victims. Stay tuned to N54 News for developments on this story. Welcome to N54 News. I'm Jillian Jordan, and here's what's happening in the world today. The last active photovoltaic solar farms have been decommissioned in Nevada and Utah. Solar power generation, once seen as the future of clean energy in America, has suffered significant setbacks in today's more extreme climate. The layer of dust suspended in our atmosphere, a result of the Himalayan wars, has limited the amount of solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface. More importantly, the increasing regularity of hurricanes and sandstorms caused frequent and costly damage to most solar farms. Unsurprisingly, wind power has fared just as poorly. The number of active turbines has plummeted by 63% over the last 15 years alone. It appears Q2 will remain the uncontested leader in the energy sector for the foreseeable future. In mainland Europe and the Mediterranean, the humanitarian crisis has grown worse. According to the latest report, as much as 20% of the continent is no longer suitable for human habitation. Temperatures in Sicily, Malta, and the Cyclades have reached as high as 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Air pollution in Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania now exceeds the continent's average by more than 2,000%. However, heads of state in France, England, and Germany have issued a joint statement in which they preclude the option of government intervention. Their statement reads, quote, "Interference by government authority is interference in the free market. The disruption of natural market mechanisms only serves to hinder the optimal path for solutions to current problems." End quote. In other news, China has become the first country in the world to formally ban the use of human-controlled road vehicles. From now on, Chinese citizens can use only autonomous vehicles approved by government regulators. State-validated self-driving vehicles will be limited to pre-authorized routes, such as a person's commute to and from work. The Chinese government has given citizens a week to report all manually operated vehicles still in use, and to submit all bicycles for installation with state-issued GPS tracers. Thank you for watching N54 News. Join us again next time.
Tonight, I'm going to be separating the lies from the truth, or at least giving it a damn good try anyway. So let's look at the first theory, eh? This one's promoted by the NUSA, Militech, and the Federalists. They tell us that Arasaka self-destructed the tower to prevent Militech from seizing the building and liberating Night City. Hey, if you listen to the story from someone like President Kress or the Pentagon, Arasaka blew themselves up as an act of spite. Knowing they were losing the battle for Night City, they detonated a nuclear device in their own HQ to prevent it from falling into the hands of the enemy and ensuring that the resulting destruction would keep the Americans busy picking through the debris. Yeah, right. This story is full of holes. They weren't losing the battle for the city, and they had no reason to blow themselves up. On the contrary, at that point in the war, the high brass and U.S. government were getting pretty damn tired with this war, and they were getting ready to end it by any means necessary, and that put Militech in a pretty tight spot. What's true here is that Arasaka did have a nuclear self-destruct device in the building, but I promise you, that wasn't the source of the explosion that night. The weird thing is, no one ever found that Arasaka nuke, intact or otherwise, in the rubble, which means that thing is still out there somewhere. I've got another theory I want to float past you, this time from the Arasaka side. Arasaka's always said that Militech was behind the bombing. After having been repeatedly humiliated in their attempts to take the city, they finally employed a commando team to infiltrate the building and plant that nuke. According to Arasaka, the people of the city stood with their patrons from across the Pacific and were instrumental in Militech's repeated military failures in the city. They also say that Night City wasn't just collateral damage, but the secondary target. I believe Militech was behind the attack. That's what my sources tell me. But Arasaka isn't telling the whole truth either. And the stuff about the loyalty of regular Night citizens to their friends in Arasaka is a damn lie. It's true that Militech had reached a stalemate in the battle for the city. Arasaka's military was well contained. In reality, the attack was meant to destroy Arasaka's secret weapon. What weapon? We'll get back to that in a bit.
Good morning, Night City! Is it a mirage? A hologram? No, my friends, it's clear, open skies. But don't take it from me. Get out there and enjoy the sun.
Hello, my name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. In today's international segment, reports of hardship have emerged from Alaska. According to the Incorporated Press, corn harvests have dropped by 80% from last year's yields, the result of catastrophically heavy rains and floods plaguing the region. Local authorities are under obligation to provide nearly 80 million bushels of their crop to Biotechnica, the engineers behind the frost corn hybrid species. The city of Juneau now faces a difficult choice of whether to honor the agreement, causing severe shortages in Alaska, or break the contract and forego next year's seed corn delivery from Biotechnica. Whether you believe Alaskans deserve humanitarian aid, or perhaps a lesson in self-reliance, cast your vote at the address below. Freak accident or targeted attack. Nanobees terrorize the residents of Milan. Eyewitness accounts tell us 7 million of the Fengwang nanobots suddenly ceased their pollination functions and buzzed straight for the Lombardy capital, though the cause remains unknown. The nanobees infested several buildings and moving vehicles, causing numerous reported accidents. The mayor of Milan, Lorenzo Ricci, announced the formation of an investigative committee to determine the cause behind the bizarre phenomenon. Ever dreamed of being a head of state? Now may be your chance. Luxury real estate firm No Limits at All has announced another 15 artificial islands, available for sale now. Each island spans at least 3 square miles and possesses a foundation built to withstand an 8 on the Richter scale. Because they are located in international waters, island owners fall under no nation's jurisdiction and are free to establish and enforce local law and custom. For more information on your future slice of paradise, visit the address below. In the meantime, this lovely West Coast weather isn't a bad substitute. Thanks for tuning in, Night City.
NC, back with you so soon? How's your afternoon? Where is the division between man and machine? To find the answer, check out the latest book from Richard Sanchez titled Chromo Sapiens. In a nutshell, according to Sanchez, humankind can never be fully automated because of, quote, all our damn brain chemistry. I wonder if this bestseller has made the Maelstrom Book Club's reading list.
Night City! Josh Kevorkian here. And as always, your business is my business. Anyone out there still clinging onto shares in the NCPD? If so, I recommend getting the doctor who woke you up from that coma to call your broker ASAP. But in all seriousness, abandon ship! Sell, sell, sell! The Night City police force is reeling from yet another day in the red. Since January, the NCPD's capitalization has slumped by a whopping 17%. And just after the force seemed poised for a meteoric rise, following its privatization in 2076, they announced an ambitious recovery proposal. A Drones for Cops replacement plan, a €5 per minute 911 hotline, a closer partnership with privatized prisons, but by the year's end, the gaping hole in their budget didn't shrink an inch. The mayor's office has a new proposal on the table for this lingering police problem. In the New Solutions Corner stand lobbyists from the corporate security industry. And you know what, folks? I say it's about damn time. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. The NCPD is a relic, a fossil. They're too blind to see that it's profit that drives success. If you want to be safe, and I mean truly safe, invest in the Ofuda protection plan from Arasaka. Take advantage of a today-only promo price of €100,000 to keep you secure for an entire year. Spend wiser, never a miser, my friends. That's it today for Your Business is My Business. Until next time.
So listen up, people. I'm going to give you a history lesson. It's been 50 years since the carbon plague hit. What's the carbon plague, you ask? It was a disease that only killed adults. It's a terrible thing, and it left a generation of orphans behind. But at least the kids that contracted, if they survive into adulthood, they make it with no lasting effects. At least that's what the docs say anyway, but I'm not so sure. See, back in the 2020s, just before the Fourth Corporate War broke out, this unidentified AV went down near Haywood. Whatever it was carrying, it was bad stuff. In less than a month, 600 adults had died of a previously unknown disease that just melted them, literally. The whole thing got contained, cleaned up, covered up. The CDC, back when that was a thing, said that it was some sort of flu. Yeah, like a flu that melts your body. But on the street, they knew the truth. It was a bioweapon. And on the street, they started calling it the carbon plague. Now, the story goes that the orphan kids mostly wound up going to surviving relatives, or the special orphanage the Knight Foundation set up after the tragedy. And the story should end there. But it doesn't. Some of those kids weren't the same afterwards. They could do things. Things that shouldn't be possible. Mind reading. Hacking without a deck. Telekinesis. Literally comic book stuff. Story gets murky at this point, but sometime during the war, those kids all vanished. officially counted among the missing after the downtown bombing. Some say they ran off. Another story I've heard is that some corp got wind of their abilities and kidnapped them, using the chaos of the war as cover. Now, personally, I'd like to think they busted out, made their escape, and they live free to this day. So maybe some of them are listening now. If you want to tell me your story, give me a call. I'll make sure you can't be traced. And I'll make sure the truth gets known. Well, that's a good question, listener. I'll tell you, I have lived in a mega building. In fact, I lived in one of the first ones ever built in Watson. I didn't have much option. It was either that or go outside and find a squat underneath a radioactive bridge somewhere. So, it's crowded. You get to know your neighbors real well. Some of them you don't want to get to know real well. But problem is, when you've got several 100,000 people, you got to put them somewhere. And Night City was not a good place to put people 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. There was a big hole in the ground, a lot of glowy stuff, and most of the inner city was wiped. So, what do I think? I think they're a necessary evil. They cleaned it up a bit. I mean, the first ones in Watson were a bit sketch. But we need them. They're not the best deal, but they might be the only deal we've got in town. This is the voice of Night City, Maximum Mike. Autonomous taxis, huh? I'm surprised they haven't done it more often. I mean, after all, they're not too smart. They're not like AIs or anything. I'm not even sure even AIs could do that. No, most probably someone hasn't been keeping up on all the real complex maintenance you need to do to keep one of these autonomous taxis on the road. And when you start cutting corners, that really simple, stupid robot stuff starts getting real simple and real stupid. So crashing into people, crashing into walls, buildings, could be anything, but I'd put it down to faulty maintenance instead of something real sinister. Of course, I could be wrong. If any of you listeners have anything you want to send in on me, call my producer. I'll look into it. Well, I suppose I could give you the usual claptrap the politicians do about thank you for your service, but they don't care, and they didn't care when I mustered out either. What are you going to do? Well, unfortunately, the nature of human beings the way they are, there's going to be wars. And even if they're not declared wars, there's always going to be a need for somebody who knows how to get around, use weapons, protect stuff, manage to get a hand onto, let's say, military hardware, know their way around it. So, what are you to do? I'd say be a solo. It's worked for me in the past. Probably worked for you.
No jokes today, Night City. Not when it means keeping you good people safe. Biotechnica's Institute of Meteorology has issued a severe sandstorm warning. Authorities have urged residents to stay at home or another well-sheltered location. No resources, they say, have been set aside for search and rescue efforts. Welcome to paradise, folks.
Hello and welcome to WNS News. I'm Arif Iqbal. Today we have several important public service announcements. In Arroyo, a terrorist group dubbing itself a trade union has been eradicated. These self-proclaimed representatives of Night City's working class attempted to organize a strike, which could have led to financial losses in the millions. Remember, if you come across these so-called union representatives, immediately contact the NCPD or the appropriate corporate security forces. More and more patients have been filing into hospitals throughout Night City with injuries caused by malfunctions in illegally purchased cyberware. Unauthenticated implants have caused several fatal short circuits already. The NCPD urges all cyberware users to buy only from licensed manufacturers. It's worth the investment. Numerous nomad caravans have appeared near city limits in North Oak and Charter Hill. Some reports suggest some of the violent vagrants may have entered Night City despite the NCPD's best efforts. If you spot a nomad, remember that you have the right to self-defense. With such dangerous criminals, warning shots alone are not considered an effective deterrent. Now, today's final story. An NCART station is stunned by a bloody massacre. The unidentified assailant opened fire on passengers waiting for the train on Platform 2 at Med Center. 10 people are confirmed dead and 16 injured. We advise Night citizens to thoroughly consider all transport options to find the safest solution. Thanks for tuning in to WNS News. Stay safe out there, Night City.
Good evening, Night City. We begin tonight with, a look at the stock market. As usual. In the wake of another attack on Arasaka's Night City HQ, the Japanese Goliath has plummeted by 17%. And we should expect that slide to continue, say analysts. According to a statement from the NCPD, a terrorist cell is believed to be responsible. But it remains unknown who funded the attack and why. Panic has saturated the market. This latest slump has led to losses in excess of 500 billion euro dollars. Arasaka CEO Yorinobu Arasaka has since evacuated his Night City office for Tokyo. In light of these events, I have only one recommendation, my friends. Sell. Sell now, while you still can. Hello, Night City. As always, your business is my business. Let's dive straight into today's big story, folks. Arasaka has announced the sale of its unprofitable facilities in Kitakyushu and Fukuoka. This is just the next step in the bold restructuring plan spearheaded by new CEO Yorinobu Arasaka, which he announced at last week's shareholders meeting. Some analysts have estimated the savings from these cuts could amount to upwards of 20 billion euro dollars. According to sources close to the CEO, the sale's initial boon will be used to fund new research and development centers. Though long considered a black sheep in the Arasaka dynasty, Yorinobu has apparently erased investors' doubts. After a shaky start, Arasaka Corp has jumped by 3%. But what's next for the Japanese Colossus? Tune in to the next Your Business is My Business to find out.
So listen up, folks. This is Max Mike coming to you with something to think about. It's no secret that the first bioplagues were released back in the 90s by the old USA. And they were effective. I mean, there's a reason non-synthetic drugs have become the stuff of legend. It's pretty hard to make heroin if you drive opium poppies to extinction. But the plagues that came after, the ones that killed off the bananas, most varieties of wheat, or more recently, all the cows, where did those come from? Now, if you listen to the experts, they were naturally occurring mutations of existing diseases brought about by climate change and overcultivation. Yeah, like we've been hearing that for the last 70 years. But here's the truth. There's been an invisible war going on between rival agricorps for decades now. And the casualties? Your food supply. See, this started after Biotechnica developed the formula for mega yeast. That's the primary source of Chew2, that stuff you put in your car. They learned that if they could control the organism and prevent competitors from growing their own, they could have a total monopoly even without trying to run the refineries themselves. Instead, they just outsourced that work to Petrochem. So they decided to apply the same strategy to the food market and prevent competitors from growing anything that wasn't a licensed Biotechnica brand. They started making Terminator crops, resistant to the naturally occurring plagues that ravaged North America during the collapse. But if you don't pay a yearly licensing fee, your crop just stops growing the next season. So what came next? Engineered viruses designed to kill anything that wasn't a licensed crop. Now, I've got friends at Biotechnica. You put enough booze into them so they can't lie anymore. They'll tell you that they didn't shoot first. Their European and South Am competitors started this war. And that may be true, but it doesn't change the fact that every year there are more crop failures, more extinctions, more plagues. Biotechnica today spends more money researching biological countermeasures to beat the competition than they do on growing crops or even on marketing. So you might want to think about that the next time you head down to your local All Foods to pick up your kibble and scop.
Hello, my name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. A dead city livens up the news today. Following the catastrophic use of biological weapons in Busan during the Militech-Arasaka conflict of the early 2020s, essentially all forms of life have been wiped clean from the megacity. Millions of people, animals, and plants were eradicated in a matter of minutes. And a similar fate awaits any to this day who strays too close to the southern edge of the Korean peninsula and the waters surrounding it. Though not all in the city lie still, automated systems powered by local tidal energy continue to operate unsupervised. Netwatch has warned that without proper maintenance, any Busan-based AI could, in time, pose a considerable threat. Arasaka has washed their hands of the issue, placing full blame for the ecological and subsequent technical crisis with Militech, who dropped the bombs. NUSA President Rosalind Myers has declined to comment on the matter. Meanwhile, in Europe, the Pedanian government is once again in the midst of a campaign to prevent illegal excavations and looting in the city of Venice. 4 looters and 7 carabinieri were killed in the most recent altercation. This city, submerged under the Adriatic Sea, still hides many centuries-old and priceless works of art. High demand from collectors has spurred on the continued looting. Official figures estimate the net worth of Venetian sculptures and jewelry sold illegally on the black market would be equivalent to 1/3 of the Pedanian economy's GDP. Most stolen works eventually find their way to collectors in private orbital stations, making reclamation a difficult process. Further west, Switzerland has officially become the first nation committed to a fully automated military by 2080. Already, 90% of the Swiss armed forces consist of Lobos, drones, and automated vehicles. The Officer Corps makes up the remaining 10%. As the Swiss government phases out its current Officer Corps, they will begin implementation of the CVS Pacem automated command system. As stated in the government's official press release, Switzerland can at last achieve its goal of true neutrality. CVS Pacem will secure our borders but will never position Switzerland as the aggressor. And that's the world's latest. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.
We return to this week's biggest story, the murder of Arasaka Corporation CEO Saburo Arasaka. The longtime head of the Japanese megacorporation was reported slain on the premises of the Konpeki Plaza corporate hotel while attending a family gathering. Saburo Arasaka's son, Yorinobu Arasaka, has cast blame for his father's murder on the company's rivals, although he has not yet provided evidence supporting this claim. According to market analysts, the CEO's death may have been a desperate attempt to divert attention away from the company's ongoing internal issues. After the break, we ask experts how they see Arasaka rebounding from the crisis. Over the past several weeks, tensions between Arasaka Corp and Militech escalated to troubling levels. Many pundits and analysts warned of a possible outbreak of armed conflict. The exacerbation of tensions was heightened when Yorinobu Arasaka assumed leadership following his father's death and accused Militech of his murder. However, in an unexpected shift, the return of Saburo Arasaka appears to have diffused the situation between the rival megacorporations.
継続は力なり。荒坂社の基本理念です。息子の頼信はこの言葉を忘れ、焦って変化を求めすぎました。私が敵味方両者に説き続けてきた教訓。完璧なものを変える必要はない。これが真理なのです。以上となります。
Saburo Arasaka and NUS President Rosalind Myers have agreed to meet in person to lay the groundwork for a lasting peace. A first step of goodwill was taken today as the Arasaka CEO withdrew from Night City 15 armored vehicles from the company's Akaashi series. Stay tuned to N54 News for developments on this story. Now for local news. The NCPD has expanded its arsenal to include Militech's Centaur-class exosuits. The force has ordered 20 of the Centaur units to be used in preventative patrols and MaxTech forces. A ceremonial signing of the partnership took place at City Hall. Police Commissioner Coleridge and Militech Government Relations Executive Meredith Stout were in attendance.
Officers in the NCPD put their lives on the line for us every day. They defend all Night citizens against gang violence, nomad outlaws, and cyber psycho attacks. Thanks to Militech's Centaur-class exosuits, they can keep themselves safe, and all the rest of us even safer.
Once again, Militech has proven its vital role in the reconstruction of America. After the break, what quality is most important when hiring a personal bodyguard for your child? Welcome to N54 News. I'm Jillian Jordan. The world remains gripped by the revelation that Saburo Arasaka has returned from the dead in the body of his son, Yorinobu Arasaka. A letter of protest regarding the apparent resurrection has been signed by religious leaders, human rights groups, and Virtue 100 company CEOs.
This is an abomination born of unchecked vanity, technocratic arrogance, complete moral collapse.
Our position is clear. Saburo Arasaka's seizure of power is in violation of international law. International arbitration is absolutely necessary to...
Night City residents are also making their voices heard. A protest outside of Arasaka's Night City headquarters has extended to its second day.
Do we really want to live in a world where the rich and powerful can become immortal? Where they can continue to take from the poor? Not only their livelihoods, but even their butts?
But Saburo Arasaka has issued his response in similarly strong terms. There will be no appeasement.
荒坂社内部の出来事に関して外部の方々にとやかく言われる筋合いはありません。生を受けることに許可が必要ない以上、蘇ることも同様であると考えるべきです。私が息子を殺めたなどという主張は事実無根。法的根拠もありません。合意の上での身体の贈与は一種の寄付に分類することができ、殺人には到底値しません。殺人の条件は生物学的な死です。見ての通り、この体は生きています。
Will the world accept Saburo Arasaka's argument and bend to his will? I'll ask our experts after the break.
Good evening, Night City! My first guest tonight is the president of the Church of Eliyahu the Last Emancipator and bane of Arasaka's PR department, one Reverend Culver.
Praise be to thee, our Father in heaven.
And our second guest is Karina Lee, host of the Chip In program, which promotes the use of cybernetic implants. How's life treating you, beautiful?
Can't complain, Ziggy. Thanks for having me.
Now, I'd like us to talk about the most exclusive and highly sought-after implant on the market today, Arasaka Corp's Relic. But maybe we ought to make sure our fair audience is up to speed. Karina, what is Relic exactly? In a word, if you could.
In one word, I'd say immortality.
Immortality? Really?
That's right. Relic allows you to transfer the consciousness from a dying person, finding a new home for their soul on a transferable chip. This person, they'll never leave your side, a companion forever with you in your own consciousness. Just imagine if...
Child, think for a moment about what you're saying. This relic is an abomination that feeds on human misery. It is an unnatural likeness. A golden calf born by false prophets. What's more, this technology is just another tool of coercion and corruption. Only the wealthy and powerful elite will have access, and they will pay any price in exchange for a chance at this so-called immortality. Arasaka speaks of preserving the soul, but they can promise nothing more than a heartless, mindless algorithm, speaking with the voice of the departed.
Well, that is true that Arasaka Corp has specifically limited access to the relic in order to...
Your promise is a lie, an evil lie, motivated by greed and lust for power that...
Now that is rich!
Hey, excuse me?
False promises, greed, a lust for power. Why, it sounds an awful lot like a church to me.
What? How dare you?
Do you not promise a life after death? Do you not charge funeral fees to a family in mourning? Maybe the Reverend is just afraid of some healthy competition, huh?
Competition? You believe everything in this world can be counted, measured, rationalized.
And wouldn't we be right? We can construct artificial brains, create new consciousness.
But I ask you why? What does that give us? Are we as a people on this earth any happier for it? You claim that this relic gives eternal life, but all I see is an eternity of suffering. Rather than say goodbye, we haunt ourselves with their voices, their presence. But
what do you folks think? Who holds the truth? Is it Ms. Lee or maybe Reverend Culver? That is up to you. Send Culver or Lee to 7892 to cast your vote and enter your name for a chance to win tickets to this year's playoffs. Until next time, Night City. Toodles!
So hey people, Max Mike here. Now, I know you follow the news in the scream sheets, so by now I know you've heard about the assassination of those ESA officials during their big conference in Zurich, right? Yeah, the news says it's high rider extremist, lunar separatists pushing back on ESA expansion on the moon. But of course, that's not really what's going on here. Never is. Now, I've got friends in, let's say, high places, and they've told me the truth of the matter. See, a few weeks ago, a Militech espionage team infiltrated an Arasaka base in the Mare Nubium. That's the Sea of Clouds. They were there because of unusual seismic activity at the base. It's an indicator that Arasaka's moving around a lot of regolith construction. For you dirt boys and dirt girls in the audience, let me clarify. Regolith's just a fancy name for moon rocks. So what did they find, you ask? Only a partially completed and totally unauthorized mass driver. That's a big rock thrower. It's really good for getting cargo materials back down to Earth from the moon. And also, as we learned in the last war, it's a great way to drop rocks on cities. So you might not know this, but new mass drivers are strictly regulated by international treaty, and they're prohibited under ESA lunar use contracts. The ESA has the ultimate high ground advantage in any Earth conflict, with their own Tycho and Copernicus mass drivers. And they really don't want anyone else having that same advantage. Especially Arasaka. So, my friends in the know tell me that Militech seems to have fed that information about Arasaka's secret mass driver to the ESA committee in advance of Arasaka's upcoming lunar contract renegotiations. And to keep their contracts, Arasaka has taken the drastic action to eliminate anyone in the ESA who might have seen this data on their mass driver. But hey, this was sloppy by Arasaka's standards. In fact, so sloppy, I'd be really surprised if this had come from the top. I'm guessing some middle manager somewhere was just trying to cover their ass.
This is N54 News with a breaking story. A cyber psycho attack shocks Wellsprings. Lester McKenzie, age 28, opened fire at the River Mall shopping center. The shooting lasted 10 minutes before the assailant was killed, shortly after MaxTac forces arrived. 35 people were pronounced dead at the scene and another 20 remain in critical condition. The Implant Manufacturers Association has issued a statement in response to the incident, stating, quote, "Our thoughts and prayers go to the victims and their families. We at the IMA extend our sincerest condolences in the wake of this unavoidable tragedy." End quote. River Mall administration has announced plans to reopen within the hour. They have offered a 50% discount at participating stores to the families of the victims. Stay tuned to N54 News for developments on this story.